Right, so hopefully this will be the last in my weird and wacky strikers series. This is part 7, and this is basically to be a conclusion of all the things that I have tested, along with potentially answering some comments that I have seen on varying videos, not just my own but others. So first off, what weapons are best in slot? Well, due to just the range game, ARs are typically going to be your best bet. Despite the fact that in the previous video I did say shotguns are going to be the highest damage output, pretty much regardless. For me personally, it's also a very boring way to play. And despite the fact that you would need an exorbitant amount of multipliers just to make up for the damage difference in a shotgun, just to put it into perspective, a FAMAS, the highest DPS AR in the game, has 44,191 damage at base. And then there's a Scorpio, which comes in at like 465,000 or something dumb. Hold on, I will just check. 451,304. Yeah, that is dumb. It's over 10 times. Oh, but the DPS. Yeah, DPS isn't going to matter when you're doing that amount of Unga Bunga Slap Hard. It's just not. Even taking up the range into account, you've still got to do like 3 times the amount of damage that FAMAS is actually capable of. Sorry to tell you, shit bust, despite how people might want to argue it. Oh, but I get more headshots. Yeah, you're going to need 1,250% headshot damage to make up for what one shotgun can do. Like, but still, I digress. ARs are still going to be your best bet, simply just because 1, accuracy, 2, effective at pretty much every range, really. Despite the fact that there is going to be a damage drop-off past a certain point, they will still be effective to a point, especially with the very large multiplier that Strikers is actually capable of giving you. Onto the point of DPS then. Why am I using a Honey Badger? And in a community post that I put up yesterday or the day before was like, oh my god, Honey Badger is amazing. Well, the simple reason for this is Honey Badger is pretty high on the DPS scale. Top DPS is FAMAS, then an F2000, TKB, and then Honey Badger. However, Honey Badger has very good handling from the off, and adding in the 15% handling from Strikers as well, it is pretty much becomes a mini laser beam. The reason I am opting for the Honey Badger over the FAMAS is simply just because when you're at low stacks, your DPS doesn't really seem to count for much. For example, when I'm at 0 stacks with a FAMAS, I will struggle to kill an elite. The DPS is there, I'm doing a very high volume of damage very quickly, but I don't have the total magazine damage to actually kill the target in the first place. Despite the fact that a Honey Badger only has like 190,000 more in total magazine damage, because of that 190,000 more at base, when you start adding in a build, multipliers, etc., I am finding that I am more than capable of killing an elite with 0 stacks on Strikers with 1 magazine. That is it. It's upping my kill potential. I'm not too bothered about DPS. At the top end, Strikers takes care of that. At the top end, FAMAS will obviously completely and utterly outperform. However, at the low end, getting started, because I'm not going to do the ACS cheese, because that's just bollocks. If I'm going to use a shotgun, I'm going to stay using a shotgun and I'll actually build around the shotgun for previous points. So for the low end, going for a weapon that has a higher base magazine value is, for me, a lot more comfortable. There's nothing more to it than just how I personally feel. Alright, next point is going to be Seska pieces. This is kind of annoying. Seska is mostly not needed. As long as you're able to hit 50% critical hit chance, put a Coyote's mask on. Done. If you don't want to run Coyote's mask, because I know people like Hutchler exist, where he doesn't like large fluctuations in his damage or relying on having varying different buffs at varying points. Likes to be completely independent and reliant on his own damage. So Fox's Prayer. As long as you're able to hit 50% critical hit chance, Fox's Prayer will outperform Seska, pushing you to that 60%. It's not just about how many crits you get. The bonus to Fox's is the fact that the damage to targets out of cover multiplier that Fox's Prayer will give you applies to both crits and non-crits, whereas Seska is just bolstering the rates in which you crit, meaning 40 to 50% of your damage is still not going to have any form of buffing to it aside from just the strikers. We then have the loveliness of the chest versus the backpack, and I actually can't believe this is still going on. I am still seeing YouTubers, streamers, etc, 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 relying solely on the chest for a 0.88, not even 1% increase in DPS. Not only do you have to manage 200 stacks, you're also not getting that much per friggin' stack. There's only about 5,700 damage per stack, whereas if you have the backpack, it pretty much doubles this output because other multipliers exist that are more consistent and usable. For example, Obliterate versus Vigilance. Yes, Vigilance is potentially going to be worth more because it doesn't have a build-up. Obliterate has a build-up. You have to crit in order to proc Obliterate. Vigilance is always there until you take damage. Problem is, when you take damage, your damage drop-off per having Vigilance and not having Vigilance is going to be huge, as well as the fact that you can't actually always rely on it because all that needs to happen is you just take damage. This can come in a variety of different forms, depending, especially if you're running directives, which can basically nullify the entire talent altogether. So, in terms of pure uptime and usability, chest talents are going to be the better option, such as Obliterate. Glass Cannon is kind of effectively better in this situation, although their top end damage will be the same. The only thing that goes against Obliterate is the fact it requires stacking. Only thing that goes against Glass Cannon, your damage is always there, you're always going to be at your maximum output, minus obviously the striker stacks, but you can take a lot more damage, and it kind of nullifies the point of running varying different skills and setups. You just want to go pure slap at that point and just do as much damage as you possibly can, and just hope that you can kill the enemy before they kill you. If you are adamant about running the chest, your best bet is to run a Badger Tough backpack with opportunistic and run a shotgun. That's it. Other than that, I struggle to actually find a decent use for the chest outside of Legendary. If you're running open world or just general missions, the chest is pointless. In Legendary, where you're able to get as well as maintain 200 stacks, it's fine. However, the chest is best coupled with the backpack. Up next is weapon talents, and this is one that actually really bemuses me. I have videos when I was, well, I still am a scrub baby YouTuber, but even more of a scrub with barely 50 subscribers, going back like 2 years here, of me reviewing talents and sort of going, this talent is amazing, why does no one use this, how is this not meta, blah de blah de blah. And now all of a sudden everyone's coming out of the woodwork being like, oh, preservation, future perfect, oh, these are amazing on strikers. Yes, they are. I've been saying it for a while. Thank you for noticing. Kind of feel like I deserve a little bit more credit here, but hey. Why are these talents useful on strikers and are really actually making a huge headway on striker builds? It's actually quite simple. You do enough damage anyway. However, despite the fact that I've been saying it, it's like people just unconsciously do it anyway. Where they've got enough damage, they don't need a damage talent, but they're lacking in survivability because strikers is completely lacking in varying forms of utility. So they're adding that into their weapon, running things like Future Perfect, which is what I'm doing. Preservation is another good one. In terms of overall output though, if you don't want to run this, your best bet is fast hands. Shit bust. Fast hands is pretty much, on strikers, is outperforming most things. There is a weird thing going on with Optimist, however, I'm not going to go into details with that because I'm still trying to get Hutchler to teach me how to math. And hopefully when he has the time, I can go through this. Let's just say Optimist, because its stacking per bullet is potentially looking like it's going to be like very, very powerful. Right, moving on to Pristine Example builds. These are going to be your maximum output, just because they are. Now there are two builds, they're both very good. One is technically better than the other, however it's also a lot more conditional. So we're just going to put these up on screen real quick. So here we have the first variant using Fox's Prayer. All rolls are critical hit damage on strikers, crit chance, crit damage on Pristine, crit chance on Foxes. All mods are critical hit chance, and we have the 20 round mag along with 2 critical hit chance mods on the weapon, obviously not forgetting the 8 times scope. And then for the second variant we have pretty much the exact same, but we are running Coyote's Mask, and we've swapped out one of our mods for critical hit damage. We were also able to swap out a mod on the weapon for critical hit damage. This will drop us to just below 40% critical hit chance. The idea of this, because of where we're scoped in, we will be going for the long range Coyote buff. This only works with the long range Coyote buff. If you're planning on doing some hiding around the corner in legendaries, the second one is going to be your best option. Now I have done a bit of rearranging on this because some people asked me to make it a little bit clearer, so I'm hoping this has solved it. What we're looking at here is BC1, which is the top build, which is incorporating Fox's Prayer, and BC2, Body Crit 1, Body Crit 2, which is the Coyotes build. As you can see, we are losing a little bit on our non-crits, but we're gaining on our crits and overall DPS, as well as increasing the fact that the Fox's set was only at 50% critical hit chance, whereas the Coyotes one is at 60, as well as the fact that we do have a bit more critical hit damage. You will be doing 10.28% more DPS on average. Same again, but we're looking at HC1 and HC2 this time. Headshot Crit 1 is Fox's build with 17 million DPS. HC2 is the Coyotes build with just under 16 million DPS. Although the Fox's build does fall short in headshot DPS, you should find that due to headshot to body shot ratios, especially when you come up against things like Chungas, the Coyotes build is potentially better minimalistically, and this is provided you're able to maintain the long buff on Coyotes. Medium buff isn't too bad, however at that point Foxes will beat it, though not by much, and if you drop down to your short buff you're only hurting yourself, because at that point you are below a 50% crit chance, which means the majority of your damage will be non-crits, and considering aside from crits your strikers buffs are not really going to do much, along with fighting in close range with a scope can be a tad toxic, and I do not recommend. Up last is non-backpack or chest striker builds. Are they viable? Yes, absolutely. This is the build I'm running in this video, apart from the fact that my chest talent isn't talent, it's actually obliterate. I monged it. 4-piece strikers with critical hit damage everywhere, Gruppo chest, crit chance, crit damage, and Coyote's Mask, and all mods are critical hit chance. And this is going to be going up against this Gruppo chest with obliterate. I actually remember to put it in this time. And then Fenris backpack with vigilance. Again, 4-piece strikers. All rolls are critical hit damage, crit chance, crit damage on the chest and backpack, and all mods are critical hit chance. Now, following the same pattern as we did previously, builds 1, so BC1 and HC1 are the build I'm running in this video, Grupo chest with coyotes, and BC2 and HC2 are the Fenris backpack with Grupo chest, obliterate, vigilance. Now you might notice that in terms of straight body crits, the obliterate and vigilance will actually do slightly more in DPS. However, you are adding another condition to this, which is vigilance. On headshots, the build that I am currently running with Grupo chest and coyotes will do more. Again though, this is also conditional on vigilance. If for any point, for any reason, we lose vigilance, we drop over 15% in total output. So there are pros and cons to both. Typically speaking, in terms of just straight up raw DPS, you don't need the chest or the backpack. Strikers itself at base will do just fine. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. However, you are adding in more conditions. Strikers is typically easier to maintain than vigilance is, just because vigilance is so finicky. All that needs to happen is you just take damage. Anyway, that just about does it for this video. I've rattled on long enough. Hopefully this will solve a few issues and arguments, as well as just, I don't know, my own personal thoughts and opinions. And it also allows me to finally delete the 37 pieces of strikers that I have spread across 4 characters. I am so over testing strikers. So hopefully after this I'll be going back to our regularly scheduled programs of Did You Know? But yeah, hopefully this will finish off strikers quite nicely. In the meantime, have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health.